Alright. I am by no stretch of the imagination a SeeYou expert. I am very much still a novice with this. But even from that perspective, I think that I can demonstrate that there's a great deal of power in the ability to do this kind of detailed analytics on your flights. And so I just wanted to kind of walk through my first analysis on one of my flights from the Red Rock hang gliding competition in 2023. Sent it just, I don't know, about a week ago. So let's do this. I have my Naviter blade on. I have it plugged in by USB cable to my machine. Oh, incidentally, SeeYou only works on Windows. Sorry about that, but that's the way it is. Let's go open. You'll find, probably under this PC or whatever, you'll find your Naviter blade. You go into the flights directory, and I think I'm after the flight on the 21st. This is a UTC date, so keep in mind that it's going to be, if you're in the US, 4 to 8 hours ahead of you. Actually, my God, more than that, I don't know, who cares? Anyway, so I preloaded this flight track, and I zoomed in on everything to get the satellite views to load, because it takes, I'm not talking go get something from the fridge time, I'm talking go out to lunchtime, and I had to do that several times to get the detailed areas of this loaded. When you first open the software, it's going to look like this actually. This little teeny button down here switches you over satellite view. That works in both the 2D map and the 3D view, which is kind of cool. I'm not going to spend a lot of time in the 3D view. I'm a little weirded out by how they draw it, and anyway, it's kind of cool in some ways. I think it's probably a lot more useful if you're doing multiple flight tracks in the same view, but I don't know. I'm not going to touch it that much during this flight analysis. Anyway, so this here's my flight track. Launched, I don't know, at about 3 o'clock, landed somewhere around 4. But the color of this track, I'm not going to fiddle with too much because I'm fairly color deficient. Right now I've got it set to vertical speed. That's a fairly useful metric for me. Anything that's kind of in the blues means sync. Everything else, I don't know, I assume there's some green and some red and some yellow and some orange in here. I can't tell the difference. There's a little bit of a darkness change across it, especially on this thermal where I was climbing really fast. But really, I really don't get a lot of information out of color. So, but you can fiddle with this. There's vertical speed. I think it defaults to altitude. I want to fiddle around with this true airspeed at some point and a few other things, but I'm not going to mess with anything on there on this flight. Let's just dive into it. Here's our start circle. I think we had gates this day. They started at 2 o'clock and we're triggering every 15 minutes. I don't care. I'm not even going to look at that part of this. But anyway, I think the best place to start is just a quick glance at your altitude graph. This is, I think, Pete Lehman. I hope I already mentioned his name, but I got to throw a huge thank you out to him, because not only did he walk me through all of this step by step, and he spent like two and a half hours with me, he did it again the next day for about a dozen other people who showed up to kind of get the intro to this software. But anyway, so here's my actual altitude, or probably barometric altitude, and then this here is the the altitude of the ground, wherever it is that you're flying. You'll see all this weird little spiky whatever, this continuous wave sort of weirdness. That's totally to be expected if you are circling over slanted terrain. If you think about it, like if you're over steep terrain, as you're heading in the direction of the terrain gradient, the terrain relative to you is going down, right? Anyway, so as you're circling, you'll see this go up and down and up and down and up and down. Anyway, but the things that are probably going to draw your attention the most are a couple of decent thermals here. Little teeny one right off of launch that I didn't get much off of, but then a decent one here, decent one here. But then what the hell is this absolutely perfect 12-minute long glide path? Well, if I double click, it's going to show me this nice little red line. This happened at 15:37 p.m. Well, 15:37. This is where my blade decided to power itself off. And in fact, let's see. 15:37, that's back here somewhere. So, somewhere here. So you can see that I've got the time up here. I should probably have that displaying seconds as well since I'm using GPS time. Alright, still try and turn it back on, turn it back on. Alright, here we go. So I'm flying along, and at some point in here, I look over at my Vario and realize, wait a minute, it's asking me if I want to power down. Like if you have a blade and you're holding down the power button, even if you're in flight, it will ask you for, it'll assume that you actually want to turn off. Don't know why, but it'll ask you for confirmation. Alright, fine. So I hit the cancel button in here somewhere. There it was. And it's like, I keep looking over at it thinking, what the hell was that all about? And I'm in a little bit of a panic because I've only flown tasks a couple of times in my entire life. The task distance on this flight is like 3 times my my previous cross-country record. And I can't thermal without a Vario. So I've got everything working against me if this thing is not working. And it just powered itself down without asking or waiting for confirmation. I'm looking at a black screen. I keep pushing the power button, and it does not come back on. And right now, I am having some very specific and not very gentlemanly things to say about Naviter. I have a friend who has exactly the same problem with his blade. Every time he takes it above about 14,000 feet, it shuts down. Naviter has been unable to give us any reason for this. They've suggested that the Varios have taken considerable damage, but my Vario has been incredibly well treated. I'm looking at it right now. It is almost literally scratch-free. It is in pristine shape. I always hang it up when I launch and when I land. Like, let's see, do I have it here? Oh, I was pretty pissed off at it. I did not actually hang it up before this landing. But so let's take a look at what was going on there and what decisions I made as a result of this sudden change in plan. Actually, first, what we should do, I don't think I've talked about this yet. Let's go to the statistics view, which is this little, vehicles SORT button. And just kind of go through really quick what this is going to tell us. There's some basic information about flight duration, when you took off, when you landed. Let's see, some information about your task. So there's some really good stuff in this flight statistics. So circling on this flight, and it's only about an hour, so it doesn't provide really good statistics. If you got like 2.5 hour flight, this gets a lot better. But I spent 51% of my time circling. That's a lot. Some of the flight tracks that I've looked at from like the Texas distance record, the circling time was more like, I think it was about 40%. Not a surprise that most of my circling was to the left. This was a left-hand turn day, and you notice that almost all of my circling is inside the start circle. So if you're in the start circle, you just circle the direction of the day. And I did there we go. I did very little other circling. So was any of this right-hand turn? No, that's left. I did a little teeny bit of right turn there. So no surprise, almost all of this is left-hand turn. 228 feet per minute, not so good. Especially on a day like this, that's a pretty low average. But I also wasted a whole ton of time in some really bad thermals right here. Like if I look at this, my altitude starts at 74.48 and 74.50 or 68. What's that? Grand total of 6 feet of gain? Oh no, 9. Yeah, whatever. That's not a lot of gain. So yeah, not a great day in terms of thermaling, or at least not, given what these two things did to me here. But these are decent. All right, well, so there's that 12 minutes that we really don't want to think about ever again. Let's take a look at what we can do with some of the other features of SeeYou here. Let's start at the beginning of this thermal. I'm going to double click to lay down this marker, and then right click and go to set first marker. And then at the top of this thermal, I'm going to double click again. Somewhere in here is probably when my thermals start freaking out at me, so I'm going to back up just a little bit. Right click, set second marker. Let's go back to statistics. Now, it's still going to be showing you the full flight here, but there's this tab that says selection. This will show you data about just the block that we've selected. And, this is looking a little better. This is 9 minutes worth of circling, 325 feet per minute. Probably not great considering the quality of the day, but I was keeping up with a topless glider, and I'm flying a sport. So I think I did okay on this thermal, to be honest. I think that there are pilots who would have done considerably better, but I was basically maintaining with at least one topless and one or two other sports, so I'm not unpleased with this. It's interesting to see the wind direction change so radically in that period of time, but anyway, a ton of information here that you can take your time to look at. The amount of time spent at each altitude and the amount of climb. Is that right? Feet? I'm not exactly sure how to read that. Oh, okay, sorry. This should not say feet. This should say feet per minute. This is your climb rate average while you were at this altitude. So, feet per minute, feet. Oh, no. Jeez, God, this is hard to read. Okay. So, at 500 feet per minute, I spent 0.9 minutes, and I climbed for 433 feet at 500 feet per minute. At 1,000 feet per minute, I spent 0.1 minutes and gained a grand total of 131 feet. That's the way to read that. Okay. Sorry, we're all learning this together. And then based on altitude, between 11,500 and 12,000, I spent 1.2 minutes and experienced 408 feet per minute average while I was there. So this isn't a bad thermal. And, if I peek at the 3D view on it, it's respectable. I vaguely remember taking this one really wide turn because we had somebody joining the thermal, and he wasn't yielding quite the way he should have, but, we had plenty of space. It was a big thermal. I didn't mind taking a little bit of a wide turn to let him in, because there was somebody on the other side of the thermal from me, too. And if I just blocked him, he may have missed the opportunity. So anyway, we got 3 people in the thermal here as a result of me just taking this little detour. No hard feelings. But it's really cool that in 3D you can see how the wind changed with this. You can also see how much I suck at circling in a thermal, and how much these circles just ooh, I mean, it's like a preschooler trying to color in a cue ball. I don't know. Whatever the hell is going on here, it's entertaining. But let's go back to this, because what I think is really useful about SeeYou is going through and analyzing your decision-making process, looking at the results of the decisions that you made, and then thinking about what might have happened if you'd made different decisions. Now, this is an odd track, I will admit. We've got the task point way the hell up here. Yeah, we've got the task point way the hell up here. And rather than flying north-northeast to get there, I fly a little bit west of north. Now, given the wind that I've experienced thus far, which is basically out of the west, I believe. Let's go back to flight. Yeah, so mostly out of the west. I launched at about 8,500, so I'd gotten some out of the south, but immediately that got to be a westerly wind. So, in my mind, I'm looking at my options if I continue along this line. Okay, first off, I don't have a Vario, which I can't circle without a Vario. I cannot hook a thermal without the beeps. And you're laughing, but try it. Try turning off your Vario sometime and see how hard it is and see how well you do at it, because I'm terrible at it. Maybe you're better, I don't know. But anyway, I'm looking at this line. I'm not sure of my glide ratio. I felt like I could probably get to, somewhere up about in here, and based upon the glide that I actually got, that was pretty accurate. The trouble is, there's not much to land in up here. So if I go north-northeast, my landing zones, if I don't pick up lift, are essentially all of this garbage, or this. And I'm going to switch views here really quick. Where is it? Here we go. So I'm looking at it from about this angle. And actually a little lower angle, I think. And I'm thinking that if the wind is out of the west coming over this ridge, this could potentially all be in rotor. Now, yeah, it was a pretty light day. It was probably being a little overcautious, but I'd rather be overcautious than make a mistake. Well, that puts this whole landing area in question. This, now that you see it in 3D, that doesn't look too spectacular. And yeah, I probably could have done fine up in here. It's, it's pretty slopey, but I'm sure I could have found some place that was uphill and upwind. This is getting to the end of what I expected my glide ratio was going to get me to. And notice, this is considerably higher than this is. So I might not have been able to glide to this. I wasn't going to take the chance. Maybe I should have shot for this. I don't know. Anyway, so I decided to stay on the west side of this ridge. But it had been very wet the week before the comp. And so all of this, I don't know what you call it, like floodplain? I don't know, what is all this? These little creeks were very full. And all of this was very dark colored. I say dark colored because, again, I'm color deficient. Green, like, healthy green. I assume that these are probably healthy green because these are crops. This healthy green is the same color as mud to me. And so I don't know if all of this is like new growth that's fairly dry or whether it's kind of muddy. And given how much water sheen I could see up here, I wasn't gonna take any bets. And so I needed to get to the west side of this little floodplain. So that's what's going on with this flight track. And you can see that, by whatever path I took while my Vario was taking a vacation, you can see that I eventually end up, right here. I've got, 97.5, so I've got about 4,000 plus over the valley. I've still got plenty of glide ratio, so I'm no longer fearful of being over this, because I know I've got glide to all of this stuff here. Now, my Vario's back on, But my brain is still very much focused on that problem, that I don't know if I can continue to trust it. And frankly, I'm not feeling my height above this valley as being an opportunity. Maybe I didn't look to the right and thought, oh, geez, maybe I could still make this happen. Maybe I could go back and work this task. But basically, I figured if I wasn't going to get altitude over this valley, then I didn't have any safe options. So I went over the valley. I probably should have gone fairly west, because I would have had a better opportunity in retrospect of finding lift here than over all of this wet crap. And you can see, like, I'm sinking at 334 feet per minute. What was I doing here? As opposed to 177. Come on. 236. I mean, over the fields, I'm getting, around 200. But over this wet crap, I'm getting around 300. Okay, lesson learned. Minus 400. Minus 472. Lesson learned. Like, all this wet crap, I should have just headed straight west and hoped for the best from here. So anyway, that was the thought process. I did hit a thermal that had potential for somebody who was a better pilot than I was. It was fairly disorganized. It was pretty weak. It was drifting the opposite. Well, I'm now learning here that, hey, wait a minute, the wind is going a different direction than I have been experiencing elsewhere. It's now out of the north. So decide. I don't know what I'm going to say. I decided I left this thermal because I gained nothing off of it. 451 for 10 feet. All right, so I gained 10 feet of altitude there. Probably not worth it. So for 451. Oh, come on. Yeah, so lost a total of 300 feet from that thermal. Figured out which direction the wind was going, started figuring out, okay, where am I going to land at? All these fields available. I think I'd originally picked this guy out here. But I think as I flew over, I saw a couple of horses. Maybe that was a different day. For some reason, I decided at the last minute not to land here and instead to land here. And so, okay, let's just circle, get my last wind reading, and I'm very glad I did, because I would otherwise have made an approach to the north. Look at the difference in wind direction between 7,400 feet and 1,000 feet lower. There's at least a 35 degree difference in wind direction here. So I'm glad I made these last circles to lose my altitude. Why am I, God, every time getting climb as I'm trying to land. So I'm doing my circles, drifting downwind, realizing I'm going to have to adjust and land directed toward the northeast, and just kind of lazy, all right, do I want to land here? Oh, whatever. And just put it down. I had all the space in the world. Could have landed closer to an actual extraction point. I think my guys picked me up right about here. It looks like 0.1, so that's about 700 foot walk. No big deal. That's, throw your glider on your shoulder and carry it. Could potentially have flown a little further this way and done my, finished my circles here and popped down right about here. Except, I think there were horses here. I don't remember. Anyway, so not a terrible flight. It could have been a great flight if it hadn't been for the failure of the blade. I'm getting a bunch of crap feedback from Flytech about what's wrong with it. I'm supposed to send it back to them, but anyway, so all things considered, it was an okay flight, but I honestly believe that if it had not been for being forced to make this decision, I could have stayed with the other pilots who climbed out. I think they got to about 16 by the time they were here, and then were able to just kind of pick on lift all the way north here. And quite a few people made goal that day, as I recall. I think 4 or 5 pilots actually made it to goal, and then a couple of them wound up sinking out down here. Anyway, that put me 13th in the day with 18 pilots. Blah. Anyway, so that's it. I'll probably do a few more of these. I'll try to keep them shorter. This is way too long. But if you have any questions about SeeYou, or particularly if you have any comments or you want to take the piss out of me for the decisions I made on this, please by all means do so. But, maybe I'll make this a regular thing on cross-country and mountain flights. Alright, take care.